IATA urges governments to work with aviation for safe 5G rollout. What about this interested you, and why do you want to talk about it today?
Well, a whole bunch of different reasons. Um, it's the International Aviation Transport Association that's talking about this. There's been a lot of consternation, and particularly in the U.S., that this 5G rollout is using a radio spectrum that is very close to radar signals, and that is causing them to want to delay this rollout near airports where it could interfere with instrument approaches in that, of course, are need to be very safely deployed. So interested from an aviation standpoint, but I'm also interested, there are a couple other um, things about it. First, 5G rollout and the Internet of Things and all of the things getting connected, and autonomous driving vehicles and the use of it maybe for um, urban air mobility, all are quite intriguing, and how this might get rolled out. But what are the unknowns that are causing risk to the airspace or to the people on the ground? So, and also, I mean, just how do you deploy this with all that, all of the different items that are going to be linked together? I live in a rural area of Colorado, so we probably aren't going to see 5G for many years. But when I go to Denver or Colorado Springs, what am I going to encounter there? So that's what was interesting me. It really a safety issue.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly it seems like 5G is more contentious than all the other Gs that preceded it, or maybe that's just because I'm learning more about it as time goes on. Taylor, actually, David, what's your take on the 5G wars or the spectrum battles?
I think there's a lot to still be figured out there. I think a lot of vendors that make small drones, especially, are waiting to kind of see what standards are out there, what innovations come about it, and where people really put kind of a foothold on things. I think also like a big challenge is the swap constraints. Is if you're going to integrate new hardware onto a lot of systems that are out there for different networks, how is that going to impact the vendor too? And with supply chain issues and everything else that can kind of snowball into this, I think there's a lot still to be kind of figured out about how people are going to implement this.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and being military, former military myself, David, you use the term there. I'm going to just define it. The acronym SWAP, size, weight, and power. That's a significant issue, right? As you integrate new technologies onto, especially onto smaller drones. But back to Taylor's point, this 5G rollout has been contentious from the get-go. If you guys all recall, it was what I think December was supposed to be a big rollout. I believe it was T-Mobile and Verizon, and the FAA threw the red card down, and it was just like, what is happening? Because the FAA was like, hold on a minute, this is gonna interfere with significant, safety. Is it called, Taylor? Safety of life, or the instrumentation, like you said, for IFR, instrumental flight rules, and so then there was a pushback, at literally a pushback of the timeline, and I think ultimately some of this was rolled out in January, well off schedule, but even so, the FAA was still putting out warnings to people, to pilots, like, hey, like, if you're in this area, your instruments might not actually work. And here we have now IATA coming on board. It's like September, and we're still talking about this. And my thinking is, why have we not like figured this out yet? Why are the agencies not working like more closely together on these things? When we're talking about safety of life and critical instrumentation, and so it's just kind of mind-boggling that we're still having this conversation today, even though some of this technology has already been deployed. I don't really know what the workarounds are, because I don't know, Taylor, I'd ask you, have you heard of any actual incidents that have occurred around where 5G has been deployed, with pilots, given this potential interference with the spectrum?
No, I haven't. And the word that was escaping me when I first was talking is it's radar altimeters, some of that stuff is 50s, 60s, 70s technology in the aircraft, and their function is to give you terrain awareness, height above ground level, and especially during instrument approaches. And so I was seeing that they had some of the, like Verizon or T-Mobile, delay deployment around large airports, but I haven't heard any issues with safety. But I can't imagine that the FAA is doing something without having had some experimentation on where that is. My other understanding about the spectrum is that it may interfere with GPS in some manner or form. So lots of things to consider.
Yeah,
Yeah, I said all the
teasing that
acronyms are.
later.
Yeah, we are. All the acronyms are flooding back, right? It's TAWS, the system you're talking, the terrain awareness system, and then it's HAWS, I think, also for the helicopters, because I know HAI, the helicopter, the big helicopter association international, was also, kind of up in arms of, hey, this is a pretty big deal, especially in a place, Taylor, like where we are right now. By the way, I'm with Taylor in beautiful Buena Vista, Colorado, at Mount Princeton Hot Springs for the 10th UAS Roundup, and there we are literally at the base of, Mount Princeton, one of the many 14ers here in Colorado. And if you're flying around here, you need your TAWS. Very significant issues that need to be resolved.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, you were saying, Don, that this hasn't been worked out, whether it's from, lack of communication between interagency players, or maybe in the past the kind of private market players had worked out all the details themselves, between them and the regulators. But it, if I was going to guess what an issue with 5G would have been, it would have been the complexity of the system, because it's not a dumb pipe like traditional systems. There's more kind of a smart mechanism for how things are passed off. But am I like misunderstanding this? Is this like an issue with the actual spectrum band that it's operating on that's causing these issues? The
Yes.
kind of
Yes, it is. And so, look, everybody, we had Jennifer Richter on here. She's a partner at Aiken Gump Strauss Hauenfeld, if I'm saying that correctly, leader of their emerging technologies practice, preeminent lawyer in this field. Spectrum is one of those high demand, low density, that's what we call it in the military, right, David? HDLD, high demand, low density assets. There's only so much spectrum to go around. And so what you're finding is, whether it's 5G in this case, and we're going to talk about Legato here in a minute, with this limited asset, it's starting to get crowded, and these the pipes, as you call them, Mike, they're bumping up against each other, and that's where there's this potential for interference, that people haven't quite thought through. How do you deal with that? Now, I believe there are sometimes filters, like radio filters or other workarounds, other technological workarounds, but these are presumably very expensive. Like, nobody even knows, right, how much something like that would cost to deploy. And then you've got the swap issue that David mentioned earlier. The more equipment you throw on to small things like drones, or even bigger things like helicopters, the more weight you're adding. So, and money to the process.
Yeah, it sounds like we're adding a burden here, because traditionally these things were not operating on this frequency band at all, right? This was a completely separate band. Um, so, but there's also other issues that arise from that, and I think we're part of the slow rollout, which is doesn't cover as much distance on this frequency either, right? So, um, we got a comment from Dan
Absolutely.
Julin. He's saying, "Good morning, all. What is the likelihood of moving to licensed bands for the larger DoD Group 2 and 3 UAS in the near future?" Thank you, Dan, for the comment. And actually, if you're out there, anybody who's also enjoying it and is willing to comment, please do. And like and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notification bell and set notifications to on so you never miss a great answer like our guests are going to give right now. So who wants to take it?
So the question, I don't know if David wants to take that. The question, and this is an FCC question, right? Because now we're talking about licensure of spectrum, and like I said, there's only so much to go around. So, David, there has been talk of having allocated spectrum for UAS, but I don't know that that's going anywhere. Have you heard anything different around the Beltway?
No, I haven't heard anything, Don. I know that's such a big issue for the FCC and the Department of Defense. Those are deep, big negotiations that, we'll have to see how time kind of plays out for it. But I don't have any big insights on that.